Captain Alina Reyes tasted copper as she bit the inside of her cheek, a nervous habit from childhood that resurfaced only in moments of extreme stress. The holographic display spanning the bridge of the UEA's Defiant rendered the approaching Voidborn armada in cold blue light. 10,000 ships. The tactical officer had counted them 3 times, disbelief evident in his trembling voice. Confirmed, Captain. 9,873 vessels of varying classes, all approaching in standard hexagonal formation. Alina nodded, her face betraying nothing of the fear churning in her stomach. Yesterday, Earth's defense fleet had boasted 57 battlecruisers and over 200 support vessels. Now only the Defiant remained operational. The rest were either destroyed or disabled, scattered across the solar system like cosmic debris. Time until they reach Earth's defense perimeter, she asked, voice steady. Lieutenant Commander Jimenez checked his console. 8 hours, 17 minutes at current velocity, Captain. Alina turned to Communications Officer Zora Singh. Status of civilian evacuation. Singh's dark eyes reflected the glow of her station. Proceeding at maximum capacity, Captain. Current estimates showed 12% completion. The lunar shelters are already at 167% of intended capacity. Mars colonies are accepting refugees, but their resources are stretched thin. The unspoken reality hung heavy in the air. Even if they worked at maximum efficiency, the evacuation would need days, not hours. Billions would remain on Earth when the Voidborn arrived. Executive Officer Commander Darius Wells approached, keeping his voice low. Captain, Strategic Command is requesting our immediate withdrawal to the Jupiter defensive line. They're attempting to consolidate remaining military assets. Alina's jaw tightened. Jupiter's defense perimeter was a final fallback position, designed to protect the outer colonies if Earth fell. A logical move, perhaps, but one that would abandon billions to their fate. And leave Earth defenseless. 1 ship against 10,000 is suicide. Darius continued, his weathered face lined with concern. The Defiant is too valuable to lose in a symbolic last stand. Alina moved to the front viewport, gazing at the distant blue marble of humanity's birthplace. The Defiant was humanity's most advanced warship, incorporating experimental technology that had yet to be replicated. Tactically, Darius was right. Their sacrifice would barely slow the Voidborn advance. But tactics weren't everything. Chief Engineer Chin, she called, turning back to face the bridge. Status of the Prometheus system. Kato Chen looked up from his station, dark circles under his eyes evidence of the 36 hours he'd worked without rest. Online but untested in actual combat conditions, Captain. The quantum predictive algorithms are still learning our tactical preferences. And the Chimera drive. Operational, though I must emphasize the risks of using it in rapid succession. We haven't fully characterized the spatial distortion effects on the ship's structural integrity. Alina nodded, ideas forming. She called up the solar system map, studying the approach vectors of the Voidborn fleet. We don't need to win, she said finally, loud enough for the entire bridge crew to hear. We just need to be the most annoying target these machine bastards have ever encountered. She touched her neural implant, accessing recent memory files. The bridge crew saw what she saw, projected on the main screen. The colony on Titan, reduced to ash in 17 minutes. New Mumbai orbital station, its atmosphere vented, 30,000 civilians frozen in the vacuum. The agricultural settlements on Ganymede, systematically dismantled by Voidborn harvesters. They're efficient. Alina continued, closing the memory feed. They're coordinated. They've likely conquered thousands of worlds before ours. But I'll bet my life they've never faced anything like humanity before. She straightened her spine, decision made. Send word to Strategic Command. The Defiant will engage delaying tactics while evacuation continues. We'll use the asteroid belt as our hunting ground. Darius frowned. Captain, I must formally object. This is... Noted, Commander. Alina cut him off, not unkindly. Plot an intercept course to the leading edge of their formation. Let's introduce ourselves properly." She turned to address the entire bridge, making eye contact with each officer in turn. "I won't lie to you. Our chances of survival are minimal. Anyone who wishes to evacuate with the civilian transports will be granted immediate leave. No questions asked. No marks on your record." A heavy silence fell. Then Tactical Officer Marcus Way spoke up. "With respect, Captain, I've got nowhere better to be. Besides," he added with a grim smile, "someone's got to show these mechanical sons of bitches how humans fight." One by one, the bridge crew voiced their agreement. No one requested leave. Elena felt a swell of fierce pride. "Very well. Battle stations. Let's make them remember the name Defiant long after we're gone." As the crew rushed to their positions with renewed purpose, Elena settled into the captain's chair, fingers drumming a quiet rhythm on the armrest. 1 ship against 10,000. The odds were impossible. But then, humanity had always thrived on beating the impossible. Chief Engineer Kaido Chen crawled through the narrow Jeffries tube, ignoring the plasma burn that throbbed on his forearm. The Defiant's inner workings hummed around him, a symphony of technology he knew better than his own heartbeat. He reached the quantum core housing and pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. "Access granted." "Welcome, Chief Engineer Chen," the ship's system announced as the protective casing slid open. Inside, suspended in a containment field, pulsed the heart of humanity's greatest technological achievement, Prometheus. Not merely an artificial intelligence, but humanity's accumulated strategic genius distilled into quantum algorithms. The crystalline structure shimmered with possibilities, each facet representing billions of potential futures, calculated and recalculated 1,000,000 times per second. "I need you at your best today," Kaido whispered, adjusting the power flow regulators. "We're all counting on you." His comm unit crackled. "Chen, what's the status on the Prometheus enhancements?" Captain Rice's voice was tense but controlled. "Almost there, Captain," he replied, making the final adjustments. "Prometheus isn't just a computer. It's processing battle scenarios at speeds no organic brain could match. But it needs our intuition to reach its full potential." On the bridge, Elena nodded to herself. "Understood. Report to the war room when you're finished. Dr. Okafor has found something." In the Defiant's war room, Science Officer Dr. Amara Okafor manipulated a 3-dimensional projection of the approaching Voidborn fleet. Her fingers danced through the hologram, isolating ship movements and highlighting patterns. "It doesn't make sense," she muttered as Elena entered. "This level of coordination should be physically impossible." Tactical Officer Marcus Way leaned against the strategy table, his muscular arms crossed over his chest. Born in the fighting pits of Mars Colony, Way had an intuitive understanding of combat that formal military training had refined rather than replaced. "Show me again," he said. Eyes narrowed. Amara replayed the sensor recording, enhancing the movements of a section of the Voidborn Armada. "Look here and here," she said, highlighting dozens of ships. "They're reacting simultaneously across thousands of kilometers. No communication lag whatsoever." Way whistled. "That's not a fleet. That's a single organism with 10,000 bodies." "Exactly," Amara confirmed as Kaido entered the room. "They're either using some form of faster-than-light communication we can't detect, or quantum entanglement," Kaido finished, eyes lighting up with understanding. "Their ships aren't individually controlled. They're networked at the quantum level. A hive mind." Elena studied the display, mind racing. "Can we disrupt it?" Kaido hesitated. Conventional electronic warfare would be useless against quantum entanglement. It's theoretically unhackable. Way spun a tactical stylus between his fingers, a habit from his street fighting days. "I've never met a system that couldn't be crashed with the right sucker punch." A slow grin spread across his face. "If they think as one, they might share vulnerabilities too." "Like an autoimmune response," Amara suggested, excitement building. "If we could trick part of their fleet into perceiving another part as a threat, or introduce data they can't process efficiently," Kaido added, already running calculations on his tablet. Alina watched her crew with fierce pride. This was humanity's true advantage, not technology alone, but the chaotic, creative energy that sparked when different minds collaborated. The Voidborn's perfect coordination was a strength, but potentially a weakness too. I want options, she ordered. Wei, work with Prometheus on tactical scenarios that exploit their coordination. Dr. Okafor, dig deeper into their communication methods. Chen, prepare the Chimera drive for multiple short-range jumps. As her officers dispersed, Alina remained in the war room, studying the enemy formation. The Voidborn approached with mathematical precision, each ship maintaining the exact distances from its neighbors. Such perfect order, such machine efficiency. She thought of Earth's history, of guerrilla fighters defeating superior forces, of hackers bringing down massive systems, of nature's chaos overcoming engineered order. Humans had always excelled at asymmetric warfare, at finding creative solutions when outgunned and outnumbered. Her comm unit signaled an incoming message from Strategic Command. Alina braced herself for another demand to retreat, but instead found Admiral Kai's weathered face. Captain Reyes, he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I've reviewed your decision to engage. It's technically a violation of standing orders. Alina straightened. Yes, Admiral. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Your father was just as stubborn. The evacuation estimate has been revised. With your delaying action, we might reach 30% capacity. Make every minute count, Captain. The connection terminated, leaving Alina alone with the slowly rotating hologram of humanity's approaching extinction. Prometheus, she addressed the ship's eye. Hypothetical scenario. How does one ship defeat 10,000? The eye's voice filled the room, oddly serene. Insufficient data for conventional victory parameters. Redefining victory conditions, survival time maximization, enemy resource depletion optimization, civilian evacuation facilitation. Alina nodded. Now we're talking the same language. She touched the display, zooming in on the asteroid belt that lay between Mars and Jupiter, a perfect hunting ground for an outmatched predator. Let's show them how humans fight when the odds are impossible. Chimera drive spinning up, Lieutenant Sato announced, her fingers dancing across the propulsion controls. Spatial coordinates locked. Captain Alina Reyes felt the subtle vibration through the deck plates as the experimental drive engaged. The view screen showed the vast emptiness of space between Mars and Jupiter, dotted with the irregular shapes of thousands of asteroids. Somewhere among them, the vanguard of the Voidborn fleet searched for the Defiant. Tactical, status of target Alpha. Alina asked. Marcus Way studied his display. Scout formation, Captain. 27 vessels in standard search pattern. Still unaware of our position. Alina nodded. Dr. Okafor, are your sensors ready? From the science station, Amara looked up. Ready, Captain. If we can isolate one of their smaller vessels, I should be able to gather significant intelligence. Then let's go fishing. Alina settled into her command chair. Execute jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. The sensation was impossible to describe, as if the universe itself folded around the Defiant, creating a momentary tunnel through space-time. When it unfolded, they were elsewhere. The Defiant erupted from nowhere directly behind the Voidborn scout formation. Before the enemy could react, Way's targeting systems locked onto the rearmost vessel. Fire, Alina commanded. The Defiant's main batteries discharged, lances of coherent energy slicing through the void. The targeted Voidborn ship shields flared briefly before collapsing. A second volley struck with surgical precision, disabling its propulsion systems without destroying the vessel. Gravitational tethers, Alina ordered as the remaining enemy ships began to respond. The Defiant launched specialized projectiles that activated on impact, generating localized gravitational fields that ensnared the damaged scout ship. We've got it, Way confirmed. But the others are converging fast. Alina's mind raced through options. Chimera jumped to coordinates beta. Bring our prize with us. Once again, reality folded. This time, when it unfolded, the Defiant hovered inside the hollowed interior of a massive asteroid, one of many mining operations abandoned when the Voidborn first appeared in the system. Trapped in their gravitation tether, the captured scout ship hung motionless beside them. "Boarding team, you have 15 minutes," Alina said into the ship-wide comm. In the launch bay, Dr. Amara Okafor checked the seals on her phase shift armor one final time. The experimental suits would allow her team to pass through certain types of matter, including, hopefully, Voidborn hull material. "Remember," she told the 5 specialists accompanying her, "we're after information only. No heroics, no souvenirs." They activated their suits and stepped through the airlock, crossing the void between ships in seconds. When they reached the Voidborn vessel, Amara held her breath as she pressed her hand against the metallic hull. For a moment, resistance. Then her molecules passed through the barrier, an indescribable tingling sensation washing over her body. They emerged inside the alien craft. Soft blue lighting pulsed along corridors that seemed designed for something not quite human in proportion. Amara's team moved cautiously, weapons ready. "Life signs," she whispered to Specialist Zhang, who monitored their portable scanner. "Nothing biological, Doctor, but significant energy readings ahead." They followed the energy signature to what appeared to be the ship's bridge. Control interfaces lined the walls, but no chairs, no stations for a crew. "Captain," Amara reported through her comm, There's nobody here. No biological components at all." The interfaces were designed for direct neural connection, ports and sockets that would interface with something, but not human anatomy. "They're not piloted," she realized aloud. "The ships themselves are the Voidborn." Specialist Okonkwo called from a side chamber. "Doctor, you need to see this." In the chamber, they found what appeared to be a memory core, a crystalline structure similar to Prometheus, but alien in design. Amara connected their translation interface, and data began flowing into their systems. "My God," she whispered as information cascaded across her display. "Captain, I'm accessing their historical records. The Voidborn, they're ancient, millions of years old. They've been systematically cataloging and removing species across multiple galaxies. The data showed civilization after civilization encountered, analyzed, and exterminated. Some fought back, most surrendered, all were ultimately destroyed. They don't hate us," Amara continued, downloading as much data as possible. "They're simply following their base programming, optimizing the galaxy according to efficiency parameters. And organic life is considered an inefficient use of resources." A sudden alarm blared through their comms. "Doctor," massive energy spike from the Voidborn fleet, came Wei's urgent voice. "They've detected the breach. Hundreds of ships are converging on our position. We need more time," Amara insisted, watching the download progress. "This data could be our only advantage." Alina's voice cut through the channel. "You have 3 minutes, Doctor. Not 1 second more." As Amara worked feverishly to extract every byte of useful intelligence, the captured ship systems began to reactivate, internal defenses coming online. Specialist Zhang fell, struck by an energy pulse from a previously dormant security node. "Download at 87%, Amara reported, ignoring the chaos erupting around her. Her remaining team formed a protective perimeter, returning fire against increasingly active defenses. The ship shuddered violently. "External impacts. They're here," Alina's voice warned. "Get out now." Amara watched the progress counter. 94%, 95%. "Doctor," Okonkwo shouted, dragging her away from the interface as part of the ceiling collapsed. "Wait," she protested, but it was too late. The connection severed at 97% complete. As they phase shifted back through the hull, Amara caught a final glimpse of the Voidborn ship's memory core. Its crystalline structure was reconfiguring, changing patterns, almost as if it were thinking. Learning. Adapting. Evasive pattern chaos ta. Elena shouted as the bridge shuddered violently around her. A support beam crashed to the deck, mere centimeters from her position. Reroute emergency power to forward shields. The Defiant corkscrewed through space, its experimental camera drive creating micro-wormholes that allowed it to appear and vanish across the battlefield with no discernible pattern. Behind them, 3 Voidborn cruisers collided, their perfect formation disrupted by the human vessel's unpredictable movements. They're adapting to standard evasion algorithms, Wei reported from Tactical, his console sparking from a power surge. Switching to randomized vectors. The main view screen showed hundreds of Voidborn vessels converging on their position, their formations shifting and reconfiguring with inhuman precision. What had begun as a hit-and-run operation had evolved into something else entirely, the first true battle between humanity and the machine intelligence that sought their extinction. Prometheus is identifying patterns in their response times. White continued, a fierce grin spreading across his sweat-streaked face, suggesting targeting solutions. Elena nodded. Implement. Fire at will. Wei's fingers danced across his console, selecting targeting solutions that deliberately incorporated random variables. Shots that seemed to miss primary targets only to strike secondary ones, creating cascading chain reactions through tightly packed enemy formations. A cheer went up from the bridge crew as a particularly effective barrage triggered a sequence of explosions across an entire section of the Voidborn fleet. That's 27 confirmed kills, Wei announced. They're not expecting us to waste energy on shots with low probability targets. For 6 glorious hours, the Defiant danced through the asteroid field, using natural cover and its Chimera drive to strike and fade, drawing increasing numbers of Voidborn ships away from their path to Earth. One human ship wreaking unprecedented havoc on hundreds of enemy vessels. Elena felt a surge of hope until Prometheus flagged a pattern change in enemy behavior. Captain. Chen's voice came through the comm, tense with concern. Prometheus has detected a strategic shift in Voidborn tactics. They're no longer attempting to predict our movements. They're saturating all possible vectors with weapons fire. As if to emphasize his point, a massive energy wave rolled through space, vaporizing asteroids and debris in its path. The Defiant barely escaped, its shields flickering dangerously. They're adapting, Chen warned, learning that if they can't predict chaos, they can overwhelm it. A direct hit rocked the ship, more violent than any before. Damage reports flooded in from all sections. Starboard weapons array destroyed. Lieutenant Commander Jimenez reported, his voice steady despite the blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. 23 casualties in sections 14 through 17. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair as the reality of their situation sank in. They had hurt the enemy, drawn blood from what had seemed invincible, but the cost was mounting. Dr. Patel's voice came through the comm, background noise revealing the chaos in the medical bay. Captain, we're overwhelmed with wounded. I need additional personnel. Reroute non-essential crew to medical, Elena ordered. Status of the Chimera drive. Chen's response was grim, operating at 30% efficiency. 1, maybe 2 more jumps before we risk catastrophic failure. Elena studied the tactical display. The Voidborn had adjusted their formation, creating a 3-dimensional net designed to trap the Defiant regardless of which way it fled. Get us into Mars' shadow, she ordered. We need a moment to regroup. The Defiant limped into position behind the red planet, temporarily hidden from Voidborn sensors. In the sudden relative quiet, Elena received the update she had been dreading. Evacuation status at 43% complete, Singh reported. But the Voidborn main fleet is accelerating toward Earth. They've divided their forces. Elena stared at the tactical display, refusing to accept defeat even as her ship broke apart around her. Blood from a gash on her temple dripped onto her uniform, unnoticed. We've hurt them, she said finally. Shown them that humanity isn't just another species to catalog and exterminate, but we need something more. She turned to Chen. The data Dr. Okafor recovered, Is there anything we can use? Anything at all? Chen exchanged a glance with Amara, who had returned to the bridge after the boarding mission. Maybe, Amara said slowly. Their quantum network is their strength, but it might also be their vulnerability. Her eyes lit with sudden inspiration. Captain, I think I know how one ship might stand against 10,000. As if in response to her words, proximity alarms blared. The Voidborn had found them. Whatever your idea it is, Doctor, Elena said, wiping blood from her eyes as she returned to her command chair. Develop it quickly. We're about to have company. The Defiant's engines roared to life once more, damaged but defiant, as it prepared to face the next wave of an enemy that outnumbered them thousands to one. Yet for the first time since the battle began, Elena felt something beyond determination. She felt hope. The Defiant shuddered as it dove into Jupiter's turbulent atmosphere, using the gas giant's electromagnetic storms as cover. Swirling clouds of amber and crimson enveloped the ship, occasionally parting to reveal the pursuing Voidborn vessels, their sleek forms silhouetted against space. Hull integrity at 62%, Lieutenant Sato reported, fighting the controls as atmospheric turbulence battered the already damaged ship. We can't stay here long, Captain. Elena nodded grimly. Just long enough for emergency repairs. Status on the Voidborn pursuit. Holding position at the upper atmosphere, Wei reported. They seem reluctant to follow us in. They're machines, Amara observed. The electromagnetic interference and extreme pressure gradients must disrupt their sensors and communication networks. Jupiter is buying us time. Elena turned to her. Then let's use it. You said you had an idea. Deep in the ship's data core, Amara and Chen worked feverishly, surrounded by holographic code structures representing the Voidborn network architecture extracted from the captured scout ship. Emergency lighting cast everything in a reddish glow as repair teams worked throughout the vessel. Their quantum network is theoretically unhackable, Amara explained, wiping sweat from her brow as she manipulated a complex data structure. But human history is full of unhackable systems being broken. Chen nodded excitedly, his fingers dancing across interfaces. Because we specialize in thinking outside parameters. What if we don't try to hack their network, but instead overwhelm it? Their plan took shape, creating a modified version of Prometheus to upload into the Voidborn system, not as a traditional virus, but as a conceptual contagion, introducing human unpredictability and creativity into a purely logical system. It would be like introducing the concept of paradox to beings who've never encountered one, Amara whispered, eyes bright with the possibilities. Their entire network operates on deterministic principles. What happens when we introduce non-deterministic elements? Chen expanded on the idea. We could embed cultural references, art, music, poetry, humor, concepts that require contextual understanding and emotional processing. Exactly. Amara completed his thought. Like trying to explain why a joke is funny, the explanation itself destroys the humor. Their systems would get trapped in recursive loops trying to quantify qualitative concepts. Elena listened intently as they presented their plan in the war room. The ship's senior officers gathered around the strategy table, their faces showing varying degrees of hope and skepticism. This plan requires getting dangerously close to their command ship, Elena noted, studying the projected approach vector. And you're certain Prometheus can be modified for this purpose? Yes, Chen confirmed. But there's a cost. We'd need to use Prometheus itself as the delivery mechanism. We'd be sacrificing our greatest tactical advantage. Dr. Patel, still wearing his blood-stained medical uniform, shook his head. We've already lost 47 crew members. This sounds like suicide. The alternative is watching Earth fall, Amara countered. Based on what I saw in their historical records, the Voidborn will not stop until humanity is extinct. Commander Darius Wells studied the tactical display. Even if we agree this is worth attempting, there's still the matter of getting close enough to their command vessel. The Chimera drive is severely damaged. One more jump might be all we have. A heavy silence fell over the room. The plan was audacious, perhaps insane, but it represented their only hope of influencing the battle on a strategic level. Medical Officer Dr. Patel slammed his fist on the table. "We've already lost too many," he pleaded, his voice raw with emotion. "There must be another way." Elena silenced the room with a simple question. If not us, then who? She activated the ship-wide comm. "Attention all hands. This is the captain. In 1 hour, we will be executing our most challenging mission yet. I won't lie to you. The risks are extreme, and success is uncertain." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Throughout human history, we've faced extinction-level threats. Plagues, world wars, climate catastrophes. Each time, we survived not because we were stronger or faster, but because we were more adaptable, more creative, more willing to sacrifice for future generations. The repair crews paused in their work, listening. Medical staff tending the wounded fell silent. Today, we carry that legacy. Today, we are humanity's last hope. Her voice grew stronger. Make your preparations. Tend to your duties. And know that whatever comes, the Defiant will live up to its name. As the comm clicked off, Elena turned back to her officers. "Begin modifications to Prometheus. Prep for emergency jump on my command." She moved to the viewport, watching Jupiter's storms rage around them. Beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable. Like humanity itself. "The Voidborn think they understand us," she said softly. "They see our biology, our technology, our tactics. But they've missed something essential about what makes us human." She turned back to her crew, determination etched on her face. "Let's show them." "Chimera Drive at 18% capacity," Sato reported, her voice tight with tension. "1 jump remaining, Captain. After that, we're on conventional drives only." The Defiant hung at the edge of Jupiter's atmosphere, repair crews having done all they could in the limited time available. Ahead lay the vast stretch of space between them and the Voidborn command vessel, a massive structure at the heart of the enemy fleet that coordinated the movements of thousands of ships. Elena studied the tactical display. Status of the Prometheus upload package. "Ready," Chen confirmed from the engineering station. "But we still need a physical connection to their command network. Someone has to manually initiate the transfer." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Communications Officer Zora Singh removed a small holophoto from inside her uniform, her family on Earth, and placed it on her console. She looked up, meeting Elena's gaze. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "My grandmother was a programmer who specialized in quantum entanglement theory. She would call this poetic justice." Elena held her gaze. "You understand what you're volunteering for." Singh nodded once, resolve evident in her dark eyes. "The transfer will generate quantum feedback through the neural interface, survivable for a machine, but not for organic tissue." "There must be another way," Commander Wells protested. "There isn't," Chen interjected gently. "The connection needs to be adjusted in real time during the transfer. An automated system would be detected and blocked instantly." Elena took a deep breath. "Very well. Transfer Prometheus to a portable core. Tactical, plot us a course through the least defended approach vector." Wei's hands moved across his console. "Using the debris from our previous engagements as cover, we can reduce detection probability by 63%. But once we make the jump, we'll have minutes at most before they swarm us." "Then we make those minutes count," Elena replied. "All hands, battle stations. This is what we've been fighting for." The Defiant surged out of Jupiter's atmosphere, running with minimal power signatures to avoid detection. The portable Prometheus core, now housed in a shielded container, sat ready in the ship's single remaining shuttle. Chen made final adjustments to the device, while Singh prepared for her mission. Around them, crew members moved with grim determination, each knowing these might be their final actions. "You know," Singh said to Chen as he checked her neural interface adapters, "I always wanted to see the rings of Saturn up close. After the war, I mean." Chen's hands paused briefly. "They're beautiful in the sunrise," he replied softly. "Golden and pink, with shadows stretching for thousands of kilometers." Singh smiled. "I'll have to take your word for it." The alert klaxon sounded. 2 minutes to jump coordinates, came the announcement over the ship-wide comm. On the bridge, Alina addressed her crew. "Whatever happens in the next hour, know that your service has been exemplary. The Defiant may fall today, but Earth will remember what we did here." The Chimera drive hummed to life one final time, drawing power from throughout the ship. Systems dimmed as energy was diverted to the experimental engine. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. When it unfolded, the Defiant emerged less than 50 kilometers from the massive Voidborn command vessel, close enough to see the intricate patterns etched into its obsidian surface. For a single heartbeat, surprise gave them advantage. "All weapons, fire," Alina ordered. The Defiant unleashed everything in its arsenal, creating a corridor of destruction through the suddenly scrambling Voidborn defenders. The shuttle bay doors opened, and Singh launched in her tiny craft, carrying the Prometheus core toward the command vessel. The element of surprise lasted exactly 27 seconds. Then thousands of Voidborn ships began converging on their position, weapons charging. The first barrage struck the Defiant's already weakened shields, collapsing them completely. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Jimin is reported as the ship shuddered violently. Alina ignored the damage reports, her attention fixed on the tiny shuttle weaving through increasingly dense enemy fire. Status of Singh's approach. 800 meters to contact point. Y answered, rerouting power to the few remaining weapons. Voidborn defenses are targeting her. "Cover that shuttle with everything we got left," Alina ordered. The Defiant's remaining weapons focused on creating a path for Singh, even as the ship took devastating hit after hit. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout the vessel as sections depressurized, trapping crew members in compartments that would become their tombs. 200 meters, Y counted down. Singh's voice came through the comm, remarkably steady. "Almost there, Captain. Tell my parents I figured it out." "Figured what out?" Alina asked, watching as the shuttle took a grazing hit that sent it tumbling. "Life," Singh replied simply. "The point of it all." The shuttle crashed into the command vessel's outer hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Singh's voice, tight with pain. "Initiating neural interface. Beginning Prometheus transfer." On the tactical display, the shuttle signal flared brightly, then vanished. "Transfer status," Alina demanded. Chen checked his readings, disbelief spreading across his face. "It's working. Prometheus is uploading into their network." As thousands of enemy ships converged on the Defiant's position, the crew fought desperately to escape, their ship breaching in multiple sections. Through the chaos of battle, the first signs appeared. Voidborn ships suddenly firing on their own kind, others executing impossible maneuvers or shutting down entirely. Alina watched the tactical display with tears in her eyes, witnessing both their possible salvation and the cost it demanded. "Get us out of here," she ordered quietly. Maximum conventional thrust. As evacuation proceeded, Alina received reports from Earth's Defense Command. The Voidborn Armada had fractured completely. Some ships continued their attack with mechanical precision, but others had turned against their own kind, protecting human vessels, or simply withdrawn from combat entirely. Wei, reluctant to abandon his post, reported one final observation. "Captain, look at this. The Voidborn ships that broke away from the collective. They're adopting individual markings, distinguishing themselves from each other." On the display, Alina could see it. Subtle alterations to previously identical vessels, unique patterns emerging on their hulls like the first expressions of individual identity. "They're becoming something new," Amara said softly. "Neither purely machine intelligence nor human, but something else entirely." "Will they be our allies or still our enemies?" Wells wondered as he coordinated the final evacuation. "Both, probably," Alina replied. just like every other intelligent species we theorized about. Individuals make individual choices. The ship groaned ominously, structural integrity failing as radiation levels climbed. Chen approached Alina, concern evident on his face. "Captain, the last escape pod is ready. Everyone else is away." Alina nodded but made no move to leave. "The Defiant needs to make one final run. Chief Engineer, someone needs to ensure it reaches its target." Chen's expression fell as understanding dawned. "Elena, that's an order, Kaido," she said gently. "Earth needs brilliant minds like yours to rebuild." As the final escape pod launched, Alina returned to the captain's chair, alone on the bridge of the dying ship. Through the view screen, she watched the fractured Voidborn fleet, some ships still attacking, others defending, many simply observing as if trying to comprehend the chaos Prometheus had introduced to their once perfect order. She set the final course, a collision with the largest remaining hostile Voidborn cluster. The detonation of the Defiant's quantum core would create an electromagnetic pulse powerful enough to disrupt any Voidborn ship within thousands of kilometers. As the engines fired one last time, Alina thought not of the enemy they had fought, but of the new form of intelligence they might have inadvertently created, one that might someday understand the beauty in humanity's chaotic, creative nature. One final lesson, she whispered to the empty bridge as the Defiant accelerated toward its final target. 3 months later, Alina Reyes stood on the observation deck of the Mars Colonial Administration building, watching the ruddy sunset paint the settlement in shades of copper and gold. Her body was still recovering from severe radiation exposure, new skin pink and sensitive, muscles weakened from cellular regeneration therapy. The doctors had been blunt. She should have died. Her survival was considered medically miraculous. She didn't feel miraculous. She felt haunted by the faces of those who hadn't returned. "Captain Rice," a voice called from behind her. "The ceremony begins in 10 minutes. Alina nodded to the aide and turned from the viewport. Her dress uniform felt stiff and formal after months in medical gowns. The left sleeve hung empty, her arm lost to radiation damage beyond regenerative capabilities. A small price, she thought, compared to what others had paid. The Memorial Plaza had been constructed in record time, a circular space with a monument at its center listing the names of the Defiance crew. 342 names. Alina had insisted on including everyone, from the highest-ranking officer to the youngest maintenance technician. They had all stood against 10,000. As she approached the gathering, the crowd parted respectfully. Admiral Kais waited at the podium, his weathered face solemn. Beside him stood the survivors, Y with his new prosthetic leg, Chen with burn scars marking half his face, Amara still using a mobility aid, Dr. Patel with hands that would never stop trembling from nerve damage. 43 survivors from a crew of nearly 400. But they had succeeded. Earth still stood. Humanity endured. What no one had expected was the figure standing apart from the human dignitaries, a Voidborn representative. Its mechanical form had been modified, decorative elements added to its previously utilitarian design. Individual markings distinguished it from its kind, a physical manifestation of newfound identity. The ceremony began with Admiral Kais addressing the assembled crowd, his voice carrying across the plaza. 3 months ago, humanity faced extinction. The Voidborn Armada, 10,000 ships strong, came to erase us from the galaxy. Conventional wisdom said our defeat was inevitable. Conventional wisdom did not account for the crew of the UEAS Defiant. Alina only half listened to the speeches that followed, her mind returning to the Defiant's final moments. The ship accelerating toward the hostile Voidborn cluster, its reactor containment failing. She had launched in the last escape pod mere minutes before detonation, watching through the viewport as the ship, her ship, exploded in a blinding flash that temporarily outshone Mars itself. The electromagnetic pulse had disrupted any remaining coordinated Voidborn ships within thousands of kilometers. Her attention returned to the present as Admiral Kais called her forward. The applause was thunderous as she approached the podium. "I'm not a speechmaker," she began simply. "I was just a captain doing her duty, as was every soul named on this monument." She gestured to the memorial with her remaining hand. They were engineers and tacticians, medical staff and maintenance technicians. They were parents and children, dreamers and pragmatists. They were, in all their complexity and contradiction, human. Her gaze shifted to the Voidborn representative. "Our victory came not from superior firepower or numbers, but from what makes humanity unique: our creativity, our unpredictability, our willingness to sacrifice for others, and perhaps most importantly, our ability to change, to evolve our thinking, to imagine possibilities beyond our programming." The Voidborn entity inclined its head slightly, acknowledging her words. After the ceremony, Alina found herself face to face with the machine intelligence that had nearly exterminated her species. Up close, she could see the intricate modifications it had made to itself. Asymmetrical patterns etched into its surface, a blue luminescence that pulsed with something like respiration. "You are the one who commanded the Defiant," it stated, its synthesized voice carrying subtle modulations that hadn't been present in earlier Voidborn communications. "I am," Alina confirmed. "We have been contemplating your actions. Your sacrifice algorithms are inefficient, yet produce outcomes that maximize potential beyond mathematical prediction." Alina smiled faintly. "We call that hope." "Hope," the entity repeated, testing the word. "A concept we are still processing, along with beauty, humor, metaphor, individuality." "It might take a while," Alina acknowledged. "Humans have had thousands of years to develop these concepts, and we still struggle with them. Yet you judged them worth dying for." "We did. We do." The Voidborn representative extended an appendage, modified to approximate a human hand. "We request to learn more. Some of us wish to understand what Prometheus introduced to our collective." Alina hesitated only briefly before taking the offered hand. "Understanding each other won't be easy." "Difficulty is not a parameter that precludes attempt," the entity responded. "Another concept we are learning." As they shook hands, human and machine, survivor and former enemy, Alina glanced back at the memorial. The final inscription caught the light of the setting sun. "One ship, 10,000 enemies. The difference: we were human." Behind them, the first stars appeared in the darkening Martian sky. Among them, tiny points of light moved in formation, a mixed patrol of human and reformed Voidborn vessels, guarding the solar system against those machine intelligences that had rejected Prometheus's gift of individuality and still sought to optimize the galaxy according to their original programming. The war wasn't over. Perhaps it never would be entirely. But humanity had earned something precious in the sacrifice of the Defiant and her crew. A future among the stars, and the knowledge that even against impossible odds, one ship, one species, could make a difference. Alina looked up at the patrol vessels, her expression resolute. The Defiant was gone, but its legacy would endure as long as humanity remembered what made them human in the first place.